All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. For those of you that are new here, my name's Drew Sims. Typically on this channel, you see a lot of Jeep-related content. I lived out of my Jeep for just over 3 years, traveling as a photographer and a filmmaker. I've been out west with my Jeep now for 5 years, and I owned it for basically 10 years. As you guys can see behind me, this is clearly not my Jeep. Sadly, I sold the Jeep about 8 months ago. That's when I picked up this Tacoma in December and then spent roughly 5 months building out the exterior and the interior to make it what it is today. I know it's been a very long time since I posted on YouTube. I was gonna do a tour video as soon as I finished the new build, but as I was looking at it and everything was shiny and brand new, and I basically had spent 2 or 3 nights out of the camper, I realized I needed to get this thing off road. I needed to spend some nights in the camper and get a feel for how everything functioned before giving you guys an honest walkthrough of the new setup. Fast forward to now, it's been just over 4 months living full time out of this camper. I spent some time in Oregon and Washington with my fiance Sam and our 80-pound dog Ramen living out of this thing, and then went up to Alaska for just over 90 days where I've definitely scratched it up and put a couple dings into the flatbed, the camper, the sliders, all that good stuff, and feel very confident now giving you guys a full walkthrough and a tour of the new setup. For the most part, everything you see on the build will be linked down below. A lot of the gear I do have an affiliate link for, so I do get a small kickback from that, which is greatly appreciated and helps support this channel moving forward. I just got back to Washington, and after this, I'm gonna go right to a weigh station. If you guys have any guesses, please comment down below at the beginning of the video, and at the very, very end, I will throw in how much the total weight with all the gear of this truck is. So let's go ahead and jump into the exterior of the build. The truck itself is a 3rd gen Tacoma. It's a TRD off-road long bed. So it's got that locking rear diff as well as a 6-foot bed. I know a lot of people that build out Tacomas tend to stick to a short bed, but for me, having that long bed just made more sense. Having the extra storage, the extra length, the bigger camper, and especially having the ability to sleep inside the camper with it shut was really important to me. There's definitely a couple times in Alaska where there are 40-mile-an-hour winds, and I decided just to hop in the back and sleep with it closed, running the diesel heater, and really great setup and really happy with the long bed. This truck honestly handles like an absolute dream. I was in Alaska going 40 miles an hour on dried up riverbeds, super washed out, and this thing is so buttery smooth. It almost doesn't feel real driving this. It doesn't feel like I've got this much weight on the back and this big of a truck setup for how smooth this is. And that was made possible by the guys over at Yotas in Denver, Colorado. Huge shout out to them for handling the majority of the exterior of this build. Suspension, lift, leaf springs, just a huge amount of work on the exterior to make this truck super capable. Coming from a Jeep and coming over to the Toyota world, first thing I did was go on forums and look up the best lift, this and that. What's the best setup to have an overlanding rig with a camper and all this weight distribution? And if you guys have ever done that, you know there's 1,000 different answers going in 1,000 different directions. So being able to go to Yotas, dealing with Dwight, Red, all the guys over there, dialing down my choices and my options to a few that they recommended, and kind of customizing this truck to be exactly what I needed it to be with the camper, with the flatbed, with all the weight that I want to carry, and what my needs are out of this truck. We'll go ahead and start up front with suspension first. I'm running a Baja +2 long travel kit, Dirt King upper control arms, and Goat Shock Slayer series with 2.5 dual adjustable coilovers. To support the weight in the back of the truck, I'm running a Dobinson's heavy leaf pack, Goat 2.5 shocks with dual adjustable remote reservoirs, and an Archive Garage shock relocation kit, which allows 12 inches of mid-travel. Because of the weight of the truck, we also upgraded the gears to 529s, which definitely made a huge difference once the camper and the flatbed were on. Goat Shocks is a relatively new company based in Denver, Colorado. It was actually the first truck in the US to have the prototypes on. The shocks are 100% made in the USA. They're tuned specifically for Toyotas. They're veteran owned. They're only selling direct to consumer at this time, so no big markups, which is why they're made in the US stuff can be priced the same as King, Fox, and other big brand companies. Huge shout out again to the guys over at Yotas. Can't recommend them enough if you're doing anything Toyota based. They do some insane builds on cruisers, FJs, Tundras, Tacomas, 4Runners, whatever you can think of Toyota related, they've done. So make sure to go check them out. I'll link all their information down below in the description. Can't say enough good things about those guys, and big thanks again to Yotas. Nothing too crazy going on under the hood. I did upgrade to an ARB air compressor. Not sure how I went 3 years living on the road out of my Jeep without having onboard air. With the compressor, with the light bar, the winch, some exterior lighting. I also upgraded the battery to a 24F AGM just from Costco. just some peace of mind to be able to have a higher power battery with some accessories. And then lastly, under the hood, we did add a Garmin power switch. All of the lighting, the air compressor, everything is controlled directly through this Garmin switch. There are no physical switches on the inside of the vehicle. Everything is controlled through here, and I can run an app through my phone just through Bluetooth and turn everything on and off, which is really convenient. Also up front, I've got a Backwoods Adventure Mods front bumper, as well as their full skid plates underneath. Really cool feature about Backwoods is that they use a combination of aluminum and steel on their bumper. So this entire bumper only weighs in at 80 pounds, which is pretty incredible. It has a 26-pound aluminum shell and then a 54-pound steel winch cradle. I was worried about going with aluminum versus steel skids, but I've knocked these things pretty good on rocks up in Alaska, and for having 1/4-inch aluminum under there, they're extremely lightweight, but also extremely durable. Next, we've got wheels and tires. I've been running Toyos for the better part of the last 4 years. On my Jeep, I had the AT3s forever. Really loved that tire. They handled extremely well in snow and ice. But for this build, I wanted to go with something a little more aggressive. Didn't want to go with a full mud tire, so I ended up with their RT Trails. This is a 285/75, so it's roughly a 34-inch tire. They handle extremely well off-road, but they also handle extremely well on-road, which is why I went with RT Trails versus a full-on mud tire. As far as wheels, I'm running the Nomad 501 Convoys. Love the look of these, super simplistic design. Definitely make sure to check out Nomad if you haven't already. This is a -10 offset, so it does stick that wheel and tire out a little bit, but I think with the truck, with the camper, that wider stance fits the new setup really nicely. Also on the exterior, I'm running an ARB Safari Snorkel. I picked this up directly in Salt Lake from a company called Tacoma Lifestyle. Great guys over there. They have a huge online store with a ton of Tacoma accessories. But if you are local to Salt Lake, they're a great shop to keep in mind. Down low, I'm running Cali Ray sliders. These are their 0 degrees, so you can actually use them as a step versus a lot of the 45-degree ones or anything sharper. Kind of tough to use as a step to get in and out of the truck. Up top, I was able to fit a Sherpa roof rack. Fits really nicely under the camper and kind of fills that gap space, which I like. I'm running Baja puck lights up top, as well as a Dynamics light bar. And then I was actually able to fit a Pelican case up top, which I'm really happy about. It's their 1720 case. I believe it's an archery case. It just so happened it fit perfectly up on the Sherpa rack. Really happy with that. I'm able to store some rain gear, some winter boots, and then I've got my Faster Flate dual hose system that I hook right up to that air compressor and helps me deflate and inflate the tires. I did do a full seat delete on the rear of the truck. I took out the back seats and then built out a drawer system. There's a drawer on this side with clothes, and then there's a drawer on the other side with camera gear. Both drawers have lockable compression latches. I also routed an extension cord to here, so I'm able to charge all of my batteries while driving and not have it be messy in the back seat. After removing the back seats, I put a ton of sound deadening down, as well as some foam insulation, just to make this as quiet as possible back here. Everything in the back here is made out of 1/2-inch birch plywood, and then the exterior pieces are finished off with Raptor liner. A lot of people use a spray gun for Raptor, but I opted for the spray cans just so I could get a finer and less coarse finish. The finish is extremely durable, super easy to clean, and if it does scratch up, it's really easy to touch up with some black paint. On top of the platform, I did put in a removable carpet just because this is where my dog stays when he travels with me. Being able to take this in and out and vacuum it and clean it just makes it really easy to have him with me on the road. And then in the front of the drawer system, there is a small shelf that runs across the length of the back seat. This is great to store puffy jackets, rain jackets, whatever it is. And I've also got some shoe storage underneath on both sides. And then behind this back wall and on the back side of the drawer system is where all the magic happens. All of the power from the camper is running off of two 135 amp hour deep cycle Dakota lithium batteries. I went with Dakota Lithium for my batteries because they have a super small footprint for how much power you're getting, and they also have internal heating technology that allows me to actually be able to use these in as low as -20 degrees Fahrenheit. You guys can also see I have a Manager 30 and a Red Vision display mounted to the back wall here, and I'm also running a RedArc 2000 watt inverter down below, and then finally a RedArc Rogue system in the camper handling all of my auxiliary power. The Manager 30 allows me to charge my lithium batteries while driving, while plugged into shore power using a NOCO plug on the outside of the camper, and also through solar with a 180 watt overland solar panel on top of the camper. Everything is controlled between two Red Vision monitors, one in the truck and one in the camper. I decided to build this from scratch just so I could customize it as much as possible. being able to fit the 2 drawers, plus using this back section here to house both my batteries, my inverter, and then most of the wiring behind this back wall. Before we get to the back of the truck, I know there's a lot going on back there. I'm really excited to show you guys. I do want to quickly mention 2 of probably the biggest upgrades on the truck that you don't see. They're not super flashy upgrades. It's not something you're going to see on the exterior of the vehicle, but to me, they're probably 2 of the most instrumental upgrades before heading up to Alaska. The first being up front here, and that's replacing the front disc brakes with power brakes. Holding the caliper, holding the disc in my hand for the first time, seeing those in person compared to the size and the quality that came stock on the Tacoma, there's literally no comparison. And I think they're honestly a necessity for a truck of this size, a truck of this weight. Having that, going down big passes in Alaska, hammering my brakes going downhill, feeling really confident, really comfortable having these brakes up front here. And then lastly, you might actually be able to see this on camera right now. There's a little red sticker down there, but a huge upgrade that was definitely felt in Alaska, definitely saved me more than a few times up in Alaska, is a long-range America fuel tank. On a Tacoma, it actually completely replaces the stock tank, so it takes it from an 18-gallon tank all the way up to a 33-gallon tank. The first time I really felt this upgrade was before even leaving for Alaska, driving from Boise, Idaho over to Bend, Oregon, which is roughly 5.5 hours of driving on one single tank of gas, which for me, again, coming from my Jeep, coming from 11, 12 miles per gallon, having this extra fuel has been an incredible upgrade. They have a pretty wide selection of tanks for Jeeps, Tacomas, 4Runners, Cruisers, GXs, and I know they actually just came out with a Ford Ranger tank. Some tanks are like mine, they completely replace your stock tank. And then they also have auxiliary tanks, I know, for the Cruisers and some other options. So big shout out to Aiden and Chris over at Long Range America. Those guys have helped me on this build. They helped me on my Jeep build. Can't thank those guys enough. So make sure you guys check out Long Range America. I'll link all their info down below in the description. They're actually running a site-wide sale on all of their tanks right now when you use code DrewSims. Big thanks again to Aiden and Chris over at Long Range America. Moving on to the back of the truck, we've got a 4-wheel camper fleet model. This came as a shell, so it's pretty basic on the outside and the inside. I ended up ripping out the entire inside and building it custom from the base up, which I'll get to in a little bit. This is a pop-top camper, so I can actually stand on the inside. I'm about 6'2", 6'3", and I still have a few inches of headroom in there. Love the look, love the diamond plate. This is something they just started offering on their slide-in models. They also have models for full-size trucks, as well as their model called Project M, which is kind of a topper that just sits directly on top of your truck bed, versus this is a full slide-in camper. On the exterior of the camper, this used to be where the propane heater was vented. I ended up ditching the propane to go with diesel. I'll explain that later when we hit the inside of the truck. But I ended up just repurposing that. The fridge sits on the inside, so these vents and this vent is ventilation for the fridge. And then here we've got a water outlet. This is the drain for the sink. And then we also have a hookup for a shower on the exterior. This has been really great, just even having my dog with me on the road, being able to spray him off. Hooks directly up to a 15-pound tank on the inside. Really nice having on-demand water on the outside of the truck, especially doing dishes while camping. I'll come out here. I've got a little collapsible sink. I can just set that up and have water. Also on the exterior, we have a set of Max Tracks mounted with an Expedition Essentials mount. If you've ever mounted Max Tracks, you know how big of a pain it is if you're using the mounts that come through the tracks like this, especially if it's winter, if it's snowing, they get iced up. It's pretty miserable to try to undo. But this, super simple, one turn of a key, and they literally pop right down. Super easy. I used to dread using Max Tracks just because they were such a pain to take on and off. But now I'll use these on a regular basis, even just to level the truck when I get to camp. Obviously, another huge upgrade in the back here is the flatbed. This is from a company called Bowen Customs. They're actually based out of Denver, Colorado as well. They're literally a few miles down the road from Mount Yotas, funny enough. Really stoked to be able to work with these guys. Incredible craftsmanship. I feel like this, compared to a lot of other flatbeds, this feels like one single piece. The welds are insane on here. Love the black, love the simplicity of it. And another huge draw to me towards Bowen versus other flatbed companies is the way it sits on the truck. A lot of flatbeds you see with campers on them are exactly that. They're a flatbed. So the whole bed sits completely flat over the wheel well. It's one single piece, versus a Bowen is integrated over the wheel well. So my camper actually sits at almost the same height that it did when I had my stock bed. I've seen a lot of four-wheel campers with flatbeds on them, and the camper literally sits maybe a foot plus higher than mine does right now, which for me takes a lot of the versatility away from the truck. Having that extra height, first of all, for wind on the highway, I can't imagine if this thing sat 12 inches taller. And just getting down tighter trails, having a lower profile is always good. So really love the look of this, really love the design of the Bowen, and obviously the storage is incredible. Having this amount of storage, not having to store anything in the camper on the floor. I've seen a lot of tour videos where you've got camp chairs, you've got backpacks, you've got all this crap that's shoved in the back of the camper while you're driving, and then you have to unload it when you get there. For me, I want to be able to pull over, everything is stored, everything has a place, and I can hop in the camper and everything is completely clean. I've got just an insane amount of storage in this for camp chairs, camping backpack, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, camp stove, rain boots, trekking poles, shower gear, and some recovery gear as well. All of the boxes come equipped with lockable compression latches, really tight feel, really sealed up, and definitely love the fact that I can lock all the boxes up if I need to. A feature I really love about the Bowen is the way the doors open. You can actually use these as an outdoor table. I use this as a cooking setup, a prep station, throw the stove on, cook up, make drinks, whatever it is. Having these outside is just really awesome to have 4 easily accessible tables. The camper is secured to the flatbed using turnbuckles that come with the four-wheel camper. Usually you have to access those inside of the camper, but with the flatbed I can actually access those through the bed. There's little drop-down drawers on the inside. This actually gives me some extra storage, which is nice. And this is also how I access my hose to fill up my 15-gallon tank that's on the inside of the camper. When I'm filling it, I use this vent hose that'll show me when it's full. It'll just start spitting out water. Definitely gonna get a gauge in the future, but this system works pretty well. Moving on to the other side of the truck, you guys can immediately see this giant window on the outside of the camper. This is one of the options that you can get on your camper, and I'm really happy I did. Lets in a ton of natural light to the inside of the truck. I also cook out here quite a bit. This is kind of the primary spot that I cook if I'm cooking outside. And it's really nice when Sam was here, when there's 2 of us, she can be inside, handing me plates, handing me ingredients from the inside of the truck, and kind of using this as an access point. Also just nice to be able to let some fresh air in when you're laying on the couch in there. I do want to give a quick spotlight to this box in specific. I've not seen this in a flatbed before. I think this was a pretty cool setup. This is actually where my diesel tank sits for my diesel heater on the inside of the camper. This is bolted directly into the Bowen using the mounts where the door latches are. Didn't have to drill at all. Well, I did drill one very small hole, but that's to get the pump line, the fuel line from here up into the camper to the actual heater. Really happy with how this turned out. Definitely one of the cooler features, and really convenient being able to pull up to a gas station, grab the diesel pump, open this and just stick it right in, and no issues. Don't have to pull anything out, don't have to put anything on the ground. Yeah, really happy with how that turned out. And then lastly on the exterior, I did add an awning as well. This is a 270 ostrich wing awning from Big Country 4x4, and it's mounted to the camper using these Mule Expedition mounts. These actually mount directly into where the camper jacks go, and that typically supports the entire weight of the camper. This awning is very well attached, 270, so it wraps all the way around the back, over the back door, connects on the other side. Used this an insane amount up in Alaska. I was there for 90 days and it rained basically 75 of those days. It was the wettest summer they've had in 25 years. So definitely happy I had this ostrich wing. I've had 4 different awnings over the past 5 years, and this is without a doubt the highest quality one I've owned, the easiest to set up. It's kind of an oversized bag, which I wasn't a huge fan of in the beginning, but they do that because it makes it so easy to put this thing back, so easy to take this thing out. They've got a cover up here up front, so if it's snowing, if it's muddy, it covers up where the zipper is, and the zipper works super flawlessly. Again, I've had multiple awnings. I've tried them in winter. They freeze up, miserable to take out. I avoid taking them out. Could not be happier with the awning. Before we pop open the camper and hop onto the inside, I do want to mention a couple things on the back of the truck here. The first being where the propane sits. So I've got 2 10-pound propane tanks in here. One tank is hooked up to the stove that I run on the inside, and the other I use a line to cook outside or hook up to my propane fire pit. Also on the back wall here, we've got a solar hookup. So if I'm parked, I've got a red arc panel that I can throw on the ground and hook directly into the truck. That runs to my Manager 30 on the inside. It can charge my batteries. I've also got a 180 watt overland solar panel on the top of the truck. There's also some lighting on the back side. There are some steps. I've never really used these as steps. I'm not sure how you're supposed to use them as steps. Maybe if you had a rack on top, you stored surfboards or whatnot. But honestly, these are really great to just throw a towel on, hang your jackets, throw a speaker, put a beer here, whatever it is. It's honestly nice having these, but I really haven't utilized them as steps yet. And then lastly, on the back wall, we've got this inlet and outlet. This is something I added myself, and this hooks directly into the diesel heater, which sits right on the inside of the camper here. And then I've got this little tubing that basically just redirects the exhaust air. That way it's pushed out and the air intake isn't getting any of that exhaust. But I think that pretty much wraps up the exterior tour of the truck. We'll go ahead and pop the latches, get the camper open, and give you guys a tour of the inside. Hands down, one of the most asked questions I always get with these videos is how do I find campsites? To be honest, one of the main resources I use is just Google Earth, but a great resource that I have been using now for the past 3 years is an app called The Dirt. With over 70,000 camping locations on the app, downloadable offline maps, the ability to book campgrounds in advance with no extra booking fees, and they recently just added 5,000 free camping locations as a Dirt Pro feature. If you guys are interested, they're actually giving away 30 days completely free of their pro membership when you use code DREW. Definitely a great resource to have when it comes to finding campsites. Made it to the inside of the camper. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a 4-wheel camper fleet shell model. So when I got the camper, it was pretty basic on the inside. It had a small bench on this side, a bench on this side, a little bit of storage underneath, and then a propane heater and a small battery setup. It might not look like a ton of space on camera, but it's actually super spacious in here. Like I mentioned, Sam and I spent about a month out of here with our 80-pound dog Ramen, all sleeping up on the bed, all hanging out in here if it was raining or cold. 4-wheel camper does offer pre-made floor plans with a ton of customization. You can do a rollover couch on this side, cabinetry built out, like I mentioned, the heater, battery setup, dinette, kitchen setup, whatever you want. They have a ton of awesome options. But for me personally, after doing 2 big build outs in my Jeep setup, I definitely wanted to get in here, get my hands dirty, do some woodworking, and just customize this and maximize the space for exactly what I needed. All of the wood on the interior is just 1/2-inch birch plywood, and then it's finished off with a plastic laminate called Formica. The Formica is glued to the wood, pressed on with a roller, and then used a router to clean up the edges and form it to the wood. Definitely think this gives the wood a much more professional finish versus my Jeep setup. It was just bare wood that I stained. This stuff is also super durable. You can get it wet, you can scratch it, you can mark it up, and you basically just clean it with Windex and it cleans up nicely. One of my favorite features of the camper, and something I didn't have to change at all, is the bed setup. So this entire bed slides out, as you guys can see. Really comfortable sleeping here. I definitely say this is one of the bigger upgrades coming over from my Jeep to this new setup. When it is Sam and I do put all the cushions up on the bed. All in all, I'd say this is as long as a California king and a little bit wider than a queen. When it is just me in here, I am able to sleep with the bed just a little pulled out, so I don't have to remove the couch cushion at all. I can just use the back cushions. But all in all, really easy to put up, really easy to take down, and super convenient that I don't need to mess with the couch cushion every night. Another great thing about this shell model is that it did come with dual max air fans, some interior lighting, as well as some exterior lighting, and all of that was pre-wired through the camper, which definitely made wiring it into the Red Arc Rogue system a little bit easier. As you guys can see, there are 4 windows throughout the top of the camper, and there is a 3-layer Velcro system on the interior. One thing I knew I wanted to do from the beginning of this build was to have real butcher block countertops on the inside of the camper. Super impractical, really heavy, I know. But coming from a Jeep, living on the road for 3 years and going in these people's vans all the time and seeing beautiful countertops and really awesome kitchen setups, and then going back to my Jeep and cooking outside every night, it was really important to me and something I've been looking forward to have a real butcher block countertop. I did save a little bit of weight by routing out about 3/4 of an inch underneath the butcher block. Still heavy, probably a little impractical, but I really love the look of this. As you guys can see also, I don't have a fixed stove in here. This is just my camp stove, my 2-burner, that I usually store in the Bowen and that I use to cook inside as well. I did that because I wanted to maximize the amount of counter space. You guys can even see the sink here sits flush which I'll show you guys in a sec, but I wanted to have as much counter space as possible to organize gear, to kind of use this as a standing desk, whatever it is. So when I do want to cook in here, I've got a propane line that runs from those 10-pound tanks. I just unscrew this, hook it up, and then this sits nicely and tucked away when I'm not using it. And as for the sink, it's a Dometic drop-in. Love the look of this, super simplistic design, really low profile as well. I've seen a lot of van and campers that have really deep, like 12-inch sinks. For me personally, just didn't make a lot of sense, took up too much space. So this is nice, sits flush. You can also stack stuff on top of it if you need to, and kind of just sinks right into the counter. Top cabinet, we've got some utensils. I've got my remote for the Max Air fans, a pour over, some Alaska coasters, a lighter, just kind of some miscellaneous cooking tools. Down below, we've got plates, bowls, 2 coffee mugs, and then I've got a nice set of knives as well. And then finally down below, this is kind of my pantry section. I've got most of my dry food in here, some granola, mac and cheese, and also an espresso maker that I just picked up from a company called 9 Barista. Probably a little bougie for the road, but when you're spending multiple months living out of the camper, a good cup of coffee definitely goes a long ways. And in here we've got some pots, pans, cooking utensils, some cutting boards, a little bit of cleaning supplies, and then the pump, accumulator, and drain and all that good stuff sits in here as well in case I need to access it. In this cabinet we've got a wooden cutting board, 2 fan covers for those dual Max Air fans, some camping mugs, a camping light, and then I've got my coffee grinder, my pour over set, my coffee grounds, and my kettle as well. And then on the back wall of this cabinet is where the Red Arc Rogue system stays. And then right below this cabinet, we've got 2 AC outlets, 2 USB-A, and 1 USB-C running directly from the camper to the truck and plugged into that 2000 watt inverter. And then last bit of storage right next to the fridge, we've got a little pull-out drawer here with some spices up top, some hand soap, dish soap, and cooking oil. The fridge itself is a Dometic CRX 65. This is a front-loading fridge, and coming over from my Jeep where I had a top-loading fridge for the last 5 years, this has been a huge upgrade. I also made sure to position the fridge next to the door so that I'd be able to access it and grab food without having to get in and out of the camper. And then there's also storage down underneath on both sides. Last bit of storage down low, I typically keep my Birkenstocks in here. I've got a little brush that I use to sweep out the camper, some binoculars, a fire extinguisher, bear spray, and a small camping light as well. And then down below, I've got some more miscellaneous storage as well as my 15-gallon water tank. This is also where I store my lagoon table. It fits in really nicely right behind the water tank, and then I can take it out, set it up, and this works great as a dinner table for Sam and I, or just to use on my own as a workspace. Also love the fact that it can swivel and is height adjustable as well. All of the cushions in the camper were custom made. The camper did come with cushions to go up on the bed, but we ended up having to make new ones just to fit this extended couch and to fit the backing so that everything would fit the bed correctly up top. We found a local fabric store and just picked out an outdoor furniture material. Like the color, kind of matches the camper nicely. And then we did reuse some of the material from the original cushions, like this leather backing. These are removable as well. They do have a zipper so you can wash them. If I had a little more time on the build, I might have tried to sew these myself, but we did end up finding a local seamstress in Salt Lake, and she did a really good job on the cushions. I also have a few throw pillows. Never had those in my Jeep, but these are really nice. You can actually store sleeping bags in these or down jackets, whatever it is. This has, I think, a 10-degree sleeping bag that I just store in here. Another big feature of the camper that you guys can see directly next to me is the diesel heater setup. I know I mentioned earlier that the camper came with a propane heater, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were wondering why I didn't just stick with propane versus having to deal with this whole new diesel setup. I did a lot of winter camping out of my Jeep. I spent a lot of cold nights up in that rooftop tent, and I always had a little propane buddy heater. Obviously not the equivalent of the propane heater that was in here, but regardless, with propane, you're usually always getting condensation with that heater. I think propane is a great option if you're going to be using it in the mornings occasionally, maybe doing a couple cold nights of camping per year. Up in Alaska, I was there for 3 months, and I probably used this heater 90% of the time, running it in the mornings, running it all throughout the night, running it during the day if I'm just hanging out inside and it's a little chilly. The heater is super small, it's compact, it's incredibly efficient. I think running this thing at 60 degrees up in Alaska with a 2.5-gallon diesel tank would last me anywhere from 7 to 10 days, which was really incredible. And then being able to fill it up at any gas station anywhere is just a huge convenience. On the outside of the box, I added just a little leather pouch here. This is great for storing my notebook. I've got some charging cables, some pens, pencils, and then up top we've got a blanket, a candle. I've got a succulent that somehow has not died even over the past 4 months. And then down low, I've got a bottle opener. And then up top here, I've got a hook for my keys. It's embarrassing to admit how many times I lost my keys while camping out of the Jeep. I always seem to find them. They're usually on a tire or somewhere on the outside of the vehicle. But having this little hook has been really nice. I get in the camper, throw the keys here, and they stay there until I leave. I think that pretty much does it for the interior tour, which pretty much wraps up this tour video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe. Also comment down below if you have any questions and I'll do my best to get to those. Like I mentioned way in the beginning of the video, I know it's been a long time since I posted on this channel. Coming back from Alaska with an absurd amount of footage, heading out on some winter camping soon as well. So really excited to be pumping out more videos on this channel. My goal for 2024 is to post 12 to 15 videos. So that's at least 1 video a month and maybe even a little more frequently. Thank you guys so much for all the continued support. Thank you for your patience over this past half year. And I'm really excited to post more on this channel and have a ton to share with you guys. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.